Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty. It is Tuesday, June 25th. We are joined by Kyle Dvorchak and Denny Carter. We may have promised you, I can't remember if we did, that today would be our AFC West preview. That is going to be
you did, Thursday. Buddy. You did.
That is going to be on Thursday instead. Today we have some news to go through, including Rhamondre Stevenson's somewhat surprising contract extension. At least I would say it was somewhat surprising. Isaiah Likely back in the news. He wants to be a chess piece for the Ravens. Curiously, after Denny and Kyle declared him totally irrelevant last week. So we'll see what happens there. We have updates on the 49ers backup running back situation. The ongoing debate, should DeMario Douglas have an ADP? Because apparently he's been lighting up Patriots offseason practice as the, quote, most explosive playmaker and only receiver who's ever done anything at the NFL level other than a recovering Kendrick Bourne. And we have some Jalin Hyatt hype. We have some Tre Tucker hype. Do you guys remember what team Tre Tucker's on? I'm assuming you'd both do.
The Raiders. Obviously, Antonio Pierce said he plays like a big receiver.
He does. So we'll see about that. Then we're going to get into our team preview articles again, checking on what Kyle wrote on the Panthers, what I wrote on the Bears, what Kyle wrote on the Bengals. First, Denny said, it's been a while since Denny's had a true stink bomb of a take. And he promised us something really bad right before the show started. He didn't tell us what it was. He just said it involved hockey at Lord Stanley's Cup, which was hoisted on Monday evening. What do you want to tell the world about hockey, Denny?
First of all, last week I said food is bad. So, yeah. I mean.
Well, you're trying to piggyback off the worst take ever uttered in the history of human existence by Benjamin Solak. So you can't really claim that one as your own.
I was going to say, aren't our brains wired to think food good too? Like that feels like evolutionarily our brains are like, oh, food good.
Denny enjoys food as much as like anyone I've ever met. It's totally fine. Like,
that's actually offensive. I've never enjoyed food.
I've seen food before.
So all right. So everybody, I've been online a long time, and everybody always says, even if you don't like hockey, you gotta watch a Game 7 in the playoffs. You just have to. It's your responsibility as a sports fan, as a consumer of sport. You have to watch it.
It's true.
And so last night I took that seriously. I said, okay, I'll watch the Florida Panthers trying not to choke away a 3-0 lead on the Edmonton Oilers.
The Oilers from the province of Alberta and the country of Canada.
And the first, and the Oilers trying to win the first Canadian Stanley Cup in 40 years, right?
31 years, 1993.
Okay, sorry. 31. Okay. So I watch it. Okay. Now they score 2 goals within the first 3 minutes of the game.
Nah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. They combined for 2 goals. Yes.
And I'm okay. This is it. This is fun. And then nothing. And then nothing happens for the rest of the game. There's one more goal and nothing. Who is enjoying this? Also, the Florida Panthers are known as the team that lays down on top of the puck.
Yeah, that part's a bit much.
That's their move. Their move is to simply not play. Their move in winning the Stanley Cup was simply to not play hockey. It's just to lay down on the puck. And, this is genius. I can't believe this. This should be punishable with jail time. You're not even playing the game. This is worse than flopping in the NBA.
Pat, this is going to be so hard for us to defend because both of us just got wrapped up watching the Euros this morning.
Yeah, I was going to say, first off, Denny's describing soccer.
I know, that's the problem is we both just got done watching exactly this, but in England, and then tonight it'll be Copa America as well. So, what are we going to say? Have you considered liking it? Watching your team like it.
Well, first off, you were right about one thing. It was about the least stirring end to a Game 7 I've ever seen, where the Panthers quite literally just laid down, camped out over the puck for the final 15 seconds. It was unwatchable sport. It was also unwatchable the final 90 seconds, and the Oilers. I mean, Connor McDavid quite literally just collapsed on the ice.
He did. He was very tired.
They were totally out of gas, so nothing happened in what should have been the most riveting 90 seconds of the game. That's because they had them totally under siege the final 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
It took an actual act of mini gods for the Oilers not to score. But Denny, so let's see here what the Oilers scored the previous 3 games. That would be 5
Denny
goals,
picked the worst
5 goals, 8 goals.
What?
Yeah, they scored 20 They scored 18 goals over the previous.
Really?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of scoring in hockey right now.
Somebody should have told me to watch those games.
The big problem is that it was June 24th. The season been going on, I think they said 257 days. The longest season. And so the NBA and the NHL have like turned their playoffs and their seasons. The regular season ended literally over 2 months ago. Like they've become like these like impossible endurance tests. Like Matthew Tkachuk, I think, was playing through like 9 different injuries. Leon Draisaitl was like clearly concealing a major injury. Like no one was even remotely healthy. They like weren't having fun anymore.
Oh, you know what's so interesting too? I'm seeing, because I follow like some hockey writers, I'm seeing transactions, like off-season transactions, already happening in hockey because they're so late into what is like the end of the regular season. Like, guys, we have to start like trading our goalies or whatever. Like the next season is about to start. And it's so weird coming from the NFL where like we have a pretty, I don't say reasonable downtime, but it exists. And I'm like, what do you guys mean you're trading players? The season is not done yet. And that's how long these postseasons are taking.
It's totally. I mean, teams have been eliminated from the playoffs for 2 months already. Like, I mean, several regular season teams haven't played now in 75 days.
That's
not
wild.
I think both teams were already in the Stanley Cup before June 1st, and it's June 24th, and the series was just ending.
No.
Yeah, and
this
was like both the NBA and the NHL were on pace to be all-time stink bomb finals until the Oilers won 3 in a row. There was no momentum because the series weren't close. There was 3 days between every game. So like any talking points were exhausted within 12 hours. I know it's for TV purposes somehow. As someone who works for a TV network, I don't really understand how 3 days
I don't either.
Really
it's too long. Way too long. I shouldn't be coming in from 95-degree heat to watch hockey. No. I don't think that's the hockey season should end in March. Let's be real.
Yeah, I think you got bad luck. It would feel fitting for it to end when it's still cold out, but I think you got bad luck picking like I don't say the worst game of the series. Like maybe I bet hockey fans would say the 8-1. I was right, 8-1.
It was 8-1.
Was that their first win? That
was the first win. So that was actually a pretty good game because they're down 3-0.
True. Yeah.
Their backs against the wall and they uncork 8 goals.
Yeah. I mean, that was a fun one for me, but maybe someone's like, oh, well, the stakes were over, one period in, which fair enough. But like you did pick a tough game to tune into, given that, like you said, you saw all the action for the most part in the first few minutes. But Pat and I are both like hockey hobbyists. I have no
for sure.
I have no interest in actually like learning a ton about the game because, as you can tell with our football discourse, it ruins it instantly, without a doubt. Fractions of a second, speed of light. The moment information that is beyond the box score gets to my brain, that's as long as I can enjoy it. Now, football is just a combat zone for me, whereas hockey, it can be fun.
I understand that. And so I was going to follow up. Is there any strategy in hockey? Or do they just go as fast as they can?
Don't tell me, Pat. Don't tell you. You'll ruin it.
I don't know what it is either. So first off, I only watch the playoffs. I do play fantasy hockey, so I know all the players. I love fantasy hockey because I can approach it purely from a zeros and ones perspective. I have no emotional attachment to any of the players. They talk endlessly about something called the forecheck. I have no clue what this is. They talk about. I've watched hundreds of hockey games in my life, and I still don't know what the forecheck is, and I never will. So, Denny, you come in from the Heat. You shouldn't be talking about hockey. You should be talking about apparently football. And in June,
we can do that.
Even though nothing has happened in 4 months and nothing will happen for 3 more months, teams still insist on doing things like signing Rhamondre Stevenson to a 4-year, $36 million contract extension. My first question would be, who was competing with the Patriots for this deal?
I don't know.
When did Bill Belichick come back? And also, why they're doing this when they signed Antonio Gibson, presumably to catch passes, and they don't even think Rhamondre Stevenson's a good pass catcher, yet they're paying him like a true 3-down back, Denny Carter. And is there something I'm missing with this deal, or is this just like a weird panic deal from a team that has a lot of cap space?
Yeah, I mean, I think they had to do something with their money, so why not bring back a middling running back? For a lot of money. I mean, this is what bad teams do, and the Patriots are a bad organization, probably will be for some time. It makes no sense, none. Gibson could usurp Stevenson as the lead back.
Nah.
I know you're a hater. You're a hater, but Gibson is a good back. He can be used in a way that is good. Stevenson cannot. So I mean, Stevenson was successfully replaced by Ezekiel Elliott last year.
No, I'll let the bit end here. He was not successfully.
I'm not. It's not a bit.
Zeke, it is a bit. Zeke was, I think, averaged like 6 yards per catch, which even Rhamondre, I think, averaged like 7. Neither of them were efficient, but Zeke was a true space absorber for the Patriots. He did literally nothing.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the Patriots would have been okay moving on from this little Rhamondre experiment. I guess that's my point.
You really think? I mean, Kyle,
I was going to say they're clearly not, because they're paying him many millions of dollars to not move on from the Rhamondre.
No, Denny's saying they should have, though.
I said they would have been okay.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I totally agree with that, but it's because of the dynamics of the NFL. For fantasy purposes, I also just think he's like fine. 2 years ago, he was legitimately really good. I don't think he was quite in that elite status, but he kind of reminds me of like the Josh Jacobs. You're pretty good, and you get all the snaps. You break a few long runs. You can put together a really good season. And Josh Jacobs, in a bad situation, doesn't look particularly good. That's the dynamics of the running back position, especially for players who are good but not great. Like, I have a lot of faith in a few different players, like Derrick Henry, for example, for looking efficient regardless of the situation. Derrick Henry was less efficient in last year than in previous years. He was still pretty solid. That team was terrible. Josh Jacobs cannot sort of replicate that level of you can at least survive your situation. I think that's where Rhamondre is. He was really good 2 years ago, and it's not like that was a good team 2 years ago. They were just better than they were last year. So to me, he's a guy who, if he gets all the work, you're really excited about him. I don't know, man. Antonio Gibson seems like the every single year we're promised, oh, this guy's special, this guy's different, and every year
he's no good. He has nothing to really do with this debate. It's just more about Rhamondre.
I mean, every year it's like Antonio Gibson's coaches try making Antonio Gibson a thing. They give it 3 weeks, and they're like, Brian Robinson, you are immediately a guy we trust over.
Well, that's because he has one fumble, and he's benched.
I'm sure that'll endear him to a new staff.
But Denny, what it boils down to me we all know running backs deserve to be paid because of just the physical toll it takes in the body. They need to be paid younger.
Yeah, for sure.
No one is hurt more by like the salary structure of the current NFL than running backs who they give all their best work during their rookie contracts where they're underpaid. And then when it's time for them, where they can actually get overpaid, no one will do it anymore. And so that system is collapsing. Something needs to be done about it. Yeah. But in the modern NFL, you only pay a running back $9 or $10 million a year if they're a 3-down back. And the Bill Belichick staff determined that Rhamondre Stevenson was catching way too many passes, and that 2022 should just not be repeated. And he had to have his receiving usage curtailed last year, and it was. And he was horribly inefficient when he did, under 1 yard per out run, which even for a running back is really bad. And the yards per catch, of course, were not good either. But then the new coaching staff clearly came to the same conclusion as Bill Belichick's coaching staff, because they signed off on signing Antonio Gibson, making it quite clear Rhamondre Stevenson won't be the pass catching back. And it's just like on a team that is so bereft of weapons. I mean, maybe it's just about having a steady presence on early downs, but he's missed a little bit. He gets dinged up fairly often too. It's just like, what was the impetus for this deal is what I don't understand. I guess the impetus might be they think he's going to have a really big year in whatever new system they have.
Sure.
But it just struck me as totally unnecessary. And, if you wait a year and he somehow gets more expensive, then it's a good problem to have. But they just did not need to do it. They did not need to allocate their resources in this way.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. I mean, maybe this means that Gibson won't be a thing at all, won't be used on passing downs. He'll be used strictly as a returner. And I mean, it's serious money. It's serious money. And so, maybe I'm missing the point here in that Patriots plan on treating Stevenson like a primary 3-down option.
So he's the RB20. Rhamondre Stevenson, strike you as too low, too high.
Who's he around right now?
He's sandwiched between Aaron Jones and Najee Harris. He's going ahead of John Brooks, Zamir White, DeAndre Swift, Jalen Warren. He's going just behind David Montgomery, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker. There's going to be some absolute heartbreakers in this zone, man. This is a bad zone. I don't know. I guess he's fine considering this competition. And the salary makes me like a little more confident in taking him now because the coaching staff clearly believes in him. So I guess I would say RB20 feels right.
That's like 3 spots too high for me. But like if Najee Harris flips him, I'm like, that's about 2 spots too high for me. Like whoever's going at the top of this tier, I'm like, this is a tier where I feel very similarly about a lot of the guys. The guy at the top, I'm always just going to say, you can have a similar production profile 5, 7, 8 picks later. So it's like hardly an indictment of him. I think, like you said, it's fine. The money does like meaningfully impact how I feel about him. If the team is financially bought into him, like I think there's a chance he returns, probably not to 3 downs. Like I don't think we'll see 2 years ago Rhamondre levels of usage, but can he be early downs, a lot of the work, and passing down splitting with Gibson? Like this at least makes me feel that's more within the range of outcomes.
Totally. Gibson is guaranteed $5.3 million. It is a 3-year deal. His base salary is only $1.125 million this year. Still, that's like too high for him just to be a return guy. He will be part of the offense. And it's probably, I guess, them looking at this receiver core and wondering, like, where are the targets going to come from? And we are still going to be targeting the running back a ton this year. And maybe we should have 2 viable running back targets. So I don't understand what the impetus was for this deal. But I don't really understand what the impetus is for talking about Isaiah Likely again, but I thought I'd bring it up real quick. He said he's focused on becoming a chess piece, quote unquote, for the Ravens this year, and that the Ravens want to get him on the field more. Likely himself said we could see him line up in, quote, the slot, in line, or in the backfield, or split out wide by himself. I mean, this is the dictionary definition of June OTAs talk. Like, oh man, They got me out wide. They got me in the backfield. Okay, I mean,
they got me in the accounting room. Yeah. I'm in the laundry room. I'm working all the positions.
Like this stuff is wild, y'all. And you're like, wow, yeah, that does sound wild, Isaiah.
I mean, so the thing is, Isaiah, and we do think that you're a good player. You ran 60% of your routes from the slot the past 2 years, so. You're
saying it shouldn't be news that he's seeing reps from the slot.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe he hasn't looked at the PFF data lately, but yeah, I mean, so he's already a slot. I mean, he's a small tight end, and so they're not going to have him lining up in line and like trying to like bang bodies, like he's going to be in the slot. But again, there's no indication that he's going to see any sort of usage. Except for if and when Mark Andrews goes down.
I'll just say this is what I was talking about last week with Mark Andrews, where he is going on 29. It's not that old for a tight end, but he is just someone who has started to take a beating, where he had a minor shoulder injury in 2022. It wasn't the worst, but he missed 2 games. He had the ankle injury last year, not the ankle, like the really serious lower body. I think it was a broken leg and like a high ankle sprain, which he somehow came back from very, very quickly. But it was kind of injury where I feel like not the kind of injury I want to see a player suffering when they're getting close to 30. I'll say that. And I just wonder how much steam Mark Andrews has left. Mark Andrews has had like several weird years. He had the huge 2021. Both the past 2 years, we didn't quite get what we expected. He was kind of more like a Dallas Goedert in 2022, which is still very good. But it felt like more like a top 4 or 5 tight end than top 1 or 2 tight end. We didn't get it last year because of the injury. But you guys made convincing cases last week that no, Mark Andrews can still be very elite in this Ravens offense. But I just do – he's someone – for better or worse, I'm going to be letting other people take him this year. Just because I'm reading the injury and age tea leaves. I could get burned. But I just wonder if we're well past post-peak for Mark Andrews.
That's like probably true. I mean, I get if you look at a player's age, tight end, I do think the age curve is pushed back a little bit. But like, I'm just gonna guess that like even for great players, if you like look at their age 29 season and say, was it better or worse than their age 27 season? Like, you're probably just on the whole true. Like, the NFL's a tough game to play into your 30s. I do think with Likely though, like, I think. I can't imagine drafting him right now. We saw last year his role. I think you mentioned this, but I don't think it was true. His role last year plummeted. He did not see the field hardly at all when Mark Andrews was healthy. Obviously, he did a lot when Andrews was dinged up. But like in terms of his just raw routes and targets per game, they're cut in half or more in terms of just when Mark Andrews is out there. What is he doing? 2 years ago, he wasn't fantasy viable when Mark Andrews out there, but they were trying to make something of him. So that's why I think that this is complete June fluff. They had the chance to use him last year.
Well, it could be just, again, that the receiver core, we didn't really improve it. We're counting on Rashad Bateman's not really been a winning strategy. Maybe they are serious about trying to get Isaiah Likely because he's of the people in the Ravens skill core, he's at least someone who's flashed upside. I mean, you could argue if Rashad Bateman has or not, but he has at least when Isaiah Likely is played, he actually does produce, which you can't say for a lot of.
Oh, I mean, he
guys
looks good
in the
when he
skill
plays.
core.
I still think it's a little rich for me because we've seen the past 2 years he's averaged like 12.5 PPR points per game when Andrews is out. That's good. I mean, it's a really strong replacement for Andrews, but it doesn't make him the tight end 2 overall. It puts him in that 7 to 8 range. Like, you're holding a stone cold 0 for the entire year until Andrews goes out, especially in redraft. I guess in best ball, you can argue like that one single week, if he gives you the 20-point game, that's kind of pretty irreplaceable.
In best ball, what about the Chargers bring back in week 17, Kyle? Which is what I.
That's not. No, it's not the Chargers. No.
Is it not the Chargers? Who was it again?
No, it's I believe Texans because they play.
Oh yeah, actually, I had Stroud and Herbert. He was bringing back with one of my quarterbacks.
Got it. Yeah, like in best ball, maybe you can make that argument. I still don't personally draft him, but in redraft, this is the most you're cutting him for bye weeks player I've ever seen.
So, totally agree. He can't be redrafted in redraft. Straight up, Isaiah Likely cannot be drafted in redraft. And I'm a redraft analyst. I'm a total best. You mentioned hobbyist earlier. I'm a complete best ball hobbyist. But I didn't like my top 2 tight ends in the draft they did last week. And my thought process was just, man, it's a long season. If I'm getting worried about Mark Andrews' durability, I'll place a small bet that Mark Andrews will not be healthy in week 17. And Isaiah Likely could be like a surprise star for my team. But total flyer. We don't need to talk about Isaiah Likely anymore. We need to talk about, oh man, I was kind of hoping the next player was better. Tank
I thought
Bigsby.
that was a transition. That sounded like a transition to an ad if I've ever heard one.
Yeah. Tank Bigsby, everybody. We're friend of the show, Sports Illustrated, John Shipley. We hope to have John on to talk to AFC South. I need to message John. John, if you're listening, we want you to come on in a few weeks. He reports that Tank Bigsby, Denny, didn't have the standout offseason program that he had last year, which is real bad news because who would have ever guessed Tank Bigsby had a standout offseason last year? The Jags have been like telling anyone, listen, like we can't put so much on Travis Etienne's plate. We got to get someone else in the mix. And then Tank Bigsby is just apparently playing like Tank Bigsby in the offseason program. They only added 5th rounder Keelan Robinson. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he profile more as like a special teams guy?
Yeah, he was like the 3rd and 4th string running back at Texas, but he's like tiny, fast dude. He's definitely return guy.
Dearness Johnson is on the roster, Denny. Is this just kind of like we're getting Travis Etienne all the touches again?
I think so. I mean, Doug Peterson has told anyone who will listen since like February that
including Matthew Bailey in February,
including in a very revealing interview, I should say, if I remember correctly, that like the ETN usage was not in the plan. It was that was forced on us. He didn't say this, but the implication was that we had to use him that way because we had nobody else.
He cried.
Tank Bigsby was a walking negative EPA stat last year. I think that there was
he was the Trevor Lawrence EPA on drop stat like that.
Yeah.
It's perfectly normal if Tank Bigsby doesn't play as a rookie. Like his EPA, I think Pat, you pointed this out. Like this bar chart kind of just looks like attempts, and for the most part, it is. Like that's how a lot of bar charts are. Is they're just volume stats. Lawrence is kind of the one exception where he had a ton of lost EPA on drops, 2 interceptions on drops, specifically on drops. We'll do that to you. So as Denny, you mentioned, he was churning out them negative EPAs.
The Jaguars lost 3 points every time they targeted Tank Bigsby. So
unironically, that's probably about true.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not quite true, but like
I saw a stat that said
that far off.
That. So I think ETN is going to just default into a pretty big role again, and he'll be fine at his ADP. I don't think that he has like elite upside, but he'll be fine, especially if this Jags offense clicks a little more with Brian Thomas in the fold. I think that's good for ETN.
He's the RB10 going directly behind Derrick Henry and Kyron Williams. I wouldn't take him over Derrick Henry. Probably would take Travis Etienne over Kyron Williams. Right? I might be taking the Kyron Williams panic like way too far. Like I am basically saying like, you got to get out. You got to sell. You got to get out. But I would probably take Travis Etienne over Kyron Williams.
Actually, I was going to mention I'm in an industry draft called MFL 10 of Death. It's a very lighthearted draft, and with a lot of our friends, Sigmund Bloom, Mike Clay, JJ Zacharyson, and Pat Thorman puts it together. Sean Siegel's also in it, along with others who obviously I'm gonna hurt their feelings here. Kyren Williams went at the first pick of the 5th round in this draft, and behind I'm trying to find some other running backs who were drafted. They're basically two rounds after Derrick Henry.
Yeah. Okay, so the panic is real.
Yeah.
Man, I'm saying the theater's on fire. And wow, that's sure that is illegal actually still. Even in this country, you can't say that. What I can say is that we're going to take a short break and we will be right back after this. It's the ultimate tryout for the toughest team to make. Elite athletes from all over the United States compete for a chance to join Team USA in Paris, but only the best will be selected. Watch the U.S. Olympic Teen Trials today through June 30th on NBC and Peacock. The Olympics draw ever closer. Denny, of course, I was trying to think of a joke to make. You're actually going to Europe during the Olympics.
I
won't be that close.
I always go to the home of the Olympics.
You do. You go back to ancient Athens and play.
I stay in Athens actually during the Olympics. I thought people who respect the Olympics did that, but
some people respect sport did that. You do the ancient events too, like you make pottery. I'm trying the first Olympics. What they did, it was like some pottery. They do bird song.
Yeah. They ran naked.
They do. They ran naked.
Isn't like the hand-to-hand combat one called like pankration or something?
Sounds right.
Really?
I'm not sure. But sure Denny is going to the site of the 1896 Olympics. While Kyle and I stay back here, and guess what? We actually talk about football. I actually do our jobs.
Dude,
I'm gone. I'm gone like half the time. Denny's gone.
Good luck, Kyle.
A lot of vacations in July.
Hayden, if you thought you were coming on once this week, get ready to learn coming on every day in July.
A lot of vacations for this website in the month of July. A lot of vacations behind Christian McCaffrey because it hasn't mattered who it's been the past year. CMC has actually stayed healthy. His backup, Elijah Mitchell, somehow has not stayed healthy, even though he barely plays. Every time he comes in, he gets injured. He's 26 years old, but apparently is still the number 2 back in San Francisco. The 49ers press corps. So almost every other team with any rookie, they're like, oh, the coaches just love this guy. Like he's going to play. They don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to get him on the field this year. Every 49ers rookie, Kyle Shanahan's like, I don't really know why we drafted this guy. To be honest, like
they've been through this too many times. They know, like they're not getting fooled by this stuff. They understand where the average Kyle Shanahan's favorite pounding the table for running back guy lands. Like they know.
So Kyle Shanahan's like point blank, like Isaac Guerendo, he's probably not even gonna make the team. This is real.
I mean, he has no interest in this kid, none.
No. So Matt Barrows from The Athletic believes the 4th rounder Isaac. How do you say it? Guerendo.
You just had it, man.
Guerendo. I didn't. I said Guerundolo. It's a Guerendo. They believe his primary rookie contributions are going to come with kick returns. I just want. Do you guys actually believe this? Because to me, Elijah Mitchell is one of the worst backups in the entire NFL.
Well, not worst, the least reliable because
the least available.
That's the same deal. You're a backup running back. You just need to,
Shanahan likes his guys. Elijah Mitchell will be. Like we've mentioned, there are only 13 living humans who understand the complexity of the Shanahan system. Elijah Mitchell happens to be one of them. So Elijah Mitchell's going to be playing NFL football for the next 15 years because the Shanahan system is spreading across the NFL, right? So he can go anywhere and they can plug him in because, again, he's a system knower, and that's all that matters. So, yes, he is the RB2, and I have zero interest. I will not draft Elijah Mitchell, not one time this season, no matter what.
What about Jordan Mason? What about Isaac Guerendo?
I mean, I would draft Mason as an end of bench guy.
Elijah Mitchell. I wouldn't be shocked if Elijah Mitchell didn't even make the friggin' team, man. Like enough with this guy.
He played over Mason last year as the RB2.
He did. He was horribly inefficient, though. He was the only inefficient 49er there was. Like he's not good. He's 26. It feels like he's been in the league like 2 years. He's 26. I just don't know. I don't know. Shanny like gets rid of everyone else who doesn't produce after like 4 months.
He's not done it. He's not done it with Eli yet.
Clings to. Yeah.
I'm gonna take him at his word. I agree. Like I don't have any opinion on whether Mitchell's good or bad. Truly don't care. Shanny, as Denny said, he's one of the 13 humans alive who knows the system. Shanny recognizes that. Guerendo was a career backup in college, a backup to Jawar Jordan, a backup to like UFLer Garrett Groshek. Like he does not profile. Denny's face lit up when I mentioned a UFL player.
You missed
Or
it.
Kyle,
he tested well. Then he tested well once.
Get ready to learn Ty Davis Price, buddy. Like you are on the trajectory.
Wow.
You're right.
I forgot Ty Davis Price. I was like, oh, our favorite 5th round pick, like in the NFL draft. Dude was in the 3rd round. Oh my God. Like Trey Sermon, Joe Williams, the guys who don't get it flame out quickly. Eli Mitchell has not flamed out. Therefore he gets it. I don't care if he's injury prone, which is mostly hard to discern, or if he's good or bad, also kind of hard to discern with running backs. Like Shanny likes him. If anything happens to CMC, we're getting a few good games and a hamstring pop. That's all we need.
Any final thoughts there, Denny?
Well, I mean, Kyle's right. Coaches don't care about metrics. They don't care about anything except for what they see. And obviously, Shanahan likes what he sees.
They really care about staying healthy, though. And
I mean, usually, yes. This is why, Pat. This is why for years now, I've thought, okay, well, Mitchell's on the outs. They can't possibly think this guy can, survive a game. I mean, he gets wrecked every time he gets hit. But they do. They for some reason they just love him, and we have to accept it.
The Patriots loved DeMario Douglas last year, even though he's 5'8", 5'9".
All right, don't slander us 5'8", maybe 5'9", folk.
Hey, but fantasy managers are showing no love to the guy who was kind of the closest thing the Patriots had to number 1 receiver last year. He's currently the wide receiver 76, barely cracking the top 170 in best ball drafts. But the Athletics' Chad Graff reports he was by far, quote unquote, the Patriots' best and most explosive playmaker in practice this spring. That includes second rookie Jalen Polk, includes all 9 Patriots tight ends. I actually don't know if they still have 9 tight ends. It might just be Hunter Henry at this point. His wide receiver 76 for a guy who's probably his floor is probably like 500 yards. Shouldn't this guy's ADP be higher?
Probably.
Or is it just not worth pursuing because the upside's not? Is it not worth pursuing floor when there's no real ceiling, Denny? Or
I mean, it depends on the kind of league you're playing in. So like in a 14-team league with like multiple flex spots, I mean, you were so thirsty at that point in the draft for anybody who can be thrown into one of those flex spots and be okay. They can get you 9-10 PPR points. And I think that's Douglas. He had at least 7 targets in 7 of his final 8 games last year. That's fine. I think that works. And so he has some proven track record of producing. Could be a kind of a scammy type player in PPR formats. But if you're in a regular 12-team league with regular sized benches and stuff, I mean, you're probably not. You don't get to the point where you're like, I gotta have my pop.
Yeah, Kyle, is he worth putting on 12-team benches, or is it just a classic? You got to think bigger. Even though he is only a second-year pro, we don't really know what his ceiling might be, even though we think we do, because he's so undersized and he got hurt, of course, which is the number one thing you can't have happen with an undersized player. Is he worth having on 12-team benches, or is the classic let someone else do it, or just wait? If the need arises, then you can add him off the waiver wire.
Yeah, no one else is drafting him in 12-team leagues, therefore you don't have to. But I do think like he's a good, as Denny pointed out, he earns targets. He led the team in receiving yards last year. It was because they had a comically low receiving yards leader, but that's not nothing. As a lately drafted rookie coming in and being your team's best receiving option, he was top 40 in PFF receiving grade, top 40 in yards per out run. He was just good. He wasn't great, but like just good as the wide receiver 72, and he was a rookie. Maybe he's more than just good. He's like pretty good. Maybe he's in that range. That you don't find that very often in the wide receiver 70. So in best ball, I think he's a really strong pick. And I do like to see, like, I normally don't really care how a guy is doing in camp unless it's drastically bad. I think that's kind of some signal. Normally don't care if he's doing great, but given his low draft capital and the team's investment in other wide receivers, I do need to see him doing well in camp. He could get passed on the depth chart pretty quickly. It doesn't look like that's going to happen though, because he's playing well.
I mean, who's going to pass him? I mean, I guess
it would be, well, I mean, there are options. It's my guess as the starting trio is Pop, Kendrick, and Jalen Polk, but they could use Javon Baker. I mean, they're paying Juju a ton of money. KJ Osborne got like $5 million in free agency. So they have a bunch of like, I don't think any of these guys are better or deserving of roles over Pop Douglas. I think he's actually like a legit wide receiver 3 in the NFL. but they've got a bunch of guys who have small chances to overtake him.
I keep forgetting that KJ Osborne's on the Patriots, and he's probably directly competing with Pop and probably going to directly win that competition.
Really?
KJ Osborne's kind of like the fully realized version of Pop Douglas. Like that's what you're hoping for.
Pretty sure
Pop
Osborne
Douglas
was dreadful last year. He's all right. Like, I don't think he's terrible though. He's
it was hard unless you're one of the best players on the planet, like Justin Jefferson. It's hard to be efficient in the setup that the Vikings had last year. So maybe I'm sure KJ Osborne is probably horribly inefficient, but he catches 50 balls every single year.
He's not terrible. Like at the end of the day, a guy who goes out every year and gets to 500 or 600 yards, like, has a place in the NFL. Pop could maybe be a 700 to 800 yard guy, though. I think he could be. We'll see if he is. But
will either Jalin Hyatt or Tre Tucker ever reach 800 yards for their career? Jalin Hyatt has apparently gained weight. This is not a joke. He wouldn't tell reporters what he weighed, though. Like, he was talking about gaining weight, and he said, "I'm not going to say the number yet." It basically sounded like someone who didn't think he could keep it on until week 1. But he's supposedly playing bigger because that was a point of emphasis from the Giants coaching staff, was apparently telling him he had to get stronger. This could not hold up to the NFL grind. He apparently is doing that. And then Tre Tucker was getting like totally gushing hype from the Raiders, like kind of like insane quotes. Like the kind. Let me see what it was here. First off, he apparently might be ticketed for a multi-dimensional role, and it's apparently
that's called
already
special teams, man. That is what that is.
Already locked down number 3 duties, according to ESPN's Paul Gutierrez, who said he was blowing by poor defensive backs, stopping on a dime to run comebacks and outs. And this is an Antonio Pierce quote. Tre Tucker, different dude. Looks different, acts different, runs different, catches the ball different. Don't look at the size. Don't mention that. Watch him play. He's the biggest guy out there.
Oh, did we miss something? Sorry. What was it? Hyatt, Tucker.
Saying something about the Raiders.
The Vegas Raiders. They play in Las Vegas now. Kyle, one guy to ever fall asleep in Las Vegas. Do we care at all about Jalin Hyatt? Do we care at all about Tre Tucker? Not all at once.
I don't think so. I mean, like, it's not impossible to envision one of these guys who are like probably their team. I don't know if Hyatt's actually his team's best bet to play wide receiver 3. Obviously, Malik Neighbors wide receiver 1. They seem to sometimes maybe like Darius Slayton, sometimes don't. He certainly plays a lot for a guy they don't like. I'll say that. And then like Wandale, serviceable slot guy. I don't know if he fits.
I got a ban. We're not going to talk about Wandale on this show.
I don't want to talk about Wandale, but also like you can't like he could play over Jalin Hyatt. They're very different players, but Hyatt could be the wide receiver 4 or 5. I do actually buy that Tucker's the wide receiver 3, but it's like what do you win when you win? I expect they're going to play a lot of 2 tight end. I know last year they used a fullback. I don't know if they have a fullback on the roster right now. They might. Like, we're not going to see a lot of the third receiver on this team. And when they're out there, they're not competing with Devontae Adams for earning targets. So like, I buy that he's their third receiver. I don't think that matters. Like 30-man dynasty roster is probably where I think you can have him. I have a 25-man dynasty roster and I cut him literally a month or 2 ago.
Well, Denny, what if Devontae Adams is the Paul Goldschmidt of the NFL and he's just done? What about Tre Tucker then?
Yeah, I mean, I think about Paul Goldschmidt a lot.
Goldie,
as they call him.
They do,
and plays for London.
He played in London for the Cardinals against the Cubs.
The Cardinals, I knew that. I saw that his bat speed has gone down precipitously.
Ooh. That's actually not a bit. I'm assuming you did legitimately see that.
I did see that. No,
so, hate that for Goldie. You hate seeing the bat speed go down.
So yeah, I mean, look, the nicest thing I can say about this Tre Tucker stuff is that if you're in a league that rewards players for return yards, then you may consider Tre Tucker.
I'll say this about Tre Tucker is that he was a 3rd round pick. It was like actual draft capital. Last year was an Urban Meyer type year for the Raiders. Like, it didn't happen. Like, just none of that exists. Some of it exists after Antonio Pierce took over. With the Josh McDaniels stuff, that didn't exist. He got on the field as a 22-year-old. He caught 20 balls. The coach loves him. Apparently the press loves him.
They do.
That he could be. So I'm in several 14-team leagues where we draft 18 or 19 guys. Like, I could see him too being like I have no idea who'd have been on my final auction thing or a salary cap draft, like $1.
Yeah.
I'll take a $1 flyer on Tre Tucker. I'll just say it's not insane. There's young players who break out every year that we don't see coming. Maybe.
I mean, he would have to usurp Jacoby Myers.
He would, but Jacoby Myers, that was a boon. That was a Josh McDaniels boondoggle. Even though he had a fine year, they don't care. But he's gonna have to re-dog himself.
I'm shocked to hear you say this, Pat, because I've never heard you say anything bad about Jacoby Myers.
Really?
You love Jacoby Myers. I think of you every time I hear Jacoby Myers' name.
Why?
Because
I don't remember talking about him.
We need someone to find the clips.
Yeah. Roll the clip. No, I mean, I don't know. There was a time when I was talking about some like target competition issues in Vegas. You're like, Jacoby Myers.
Well, last year, there were. Well, no, it's because of how much money they gave him. Last year, I kept talking about Jacoby Myers because Josh McDaniels paid him like he was like a star.
And
he got weird. Exactly. And he got weird with Devontae. That was my deal with Jacoby last year.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't ignore what they're paying him.
Yeah.
How they're treating him.
And you were right. So yeah, hey, look. Okay. It's becoming clearer in my head. I can see the Antonio Pierce regime saying Jacoby who? And saying Tre Tucker, you're getting every snap at wide receiver too.
I do think they're doing the exact opposite, by the way, where I think he's like talking about Jacoby Myers dog levels and all that. So maybe he's just doing this with every receiver.
I mean, the key with the Raiders is to draft Devontae Adams and nobody else.
Can Jalin Hyatt be like breakout is definitely strong, but a really explosive young guy who was in a hopeless situation last year.
Yeah, I mean, better and best ball.
Season. Yeah,
is that I mean, it's a cop out, but like him, like AD Mitchell, Brian Thomas, like I'm not super interested in them in a redraft because I don't want that headache. Mostly, well, that's probably a loser way to go about it, but you know, in best ball, like I feel okay about like throwing Jalin Hyatt on the end of my roster and being like, hey, I'm gonna get his 2 spiked weeks. That'll be fun.
Jalin Hyatt is a lower ADP than Tez Walker, Marcus Robinson.
That's
Zay
correct.
Jones.
I like all that. Not Zay Jones.
That seems regrettable.
No,
I mean, DeMarcus Robinson over the final like 5 weeks of the year was averaging like 100 air yards a game. Legitimately 100.
Who cares? Like who cares?
We scored fantasy points. Of course we care.
He's behind Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Like who cares? Like,
he scored fantasy points. I care.
It doesn't matter at all. It actually doesn't. I'm not even saying this is a bit. It like truly doesn't matter. Like
what matters then?
There was 4 games one time where Tyler Higbee caught 70 total balls and then never did anything. It doesn't matter. Just Sean McVay was on one basically.
He was in his bag.
He's like, look at this. I'm going to make DeMarcus Robinson relevant for a month for some reason.
No, he's not. It's not for some reason. It's guy gets to run. He literally ran like 100% of the routes.
Yes, that's right.
Every once in a while, Stafford catches his eye. Like, he's way out there, way deep, and throws one. Like, I would take him straight up quite easily over Jalin Hyatt fantasy points this year. If we're talking about Jalin Hyatt, I get to talk about DeMarcus Robinson.
I would take Hyatt over Robinson.
I would take something for that. We need like an episode where we just litigate our differences with gambling.
I would also take a short break and return right after this. We'll be right back. The toughest cycling race of the year is back. The Tour de France takes the world's top cyclists on a mountainous 21-day journey. Stream exclusive coverage all race long, beginning this Saturday, June 29th at 6:30 a.m. Eastern on Peacock. The Tour de France is so deranged. I really like it. They're out there like fighting for their lives, and they crash a lot. They look like really, really hopeless a lot. It's a really compelling.
Are you okay, Pat? This sounds like a crime.
No, it's totally amazing. Like you see the depths of despair, like the first day of the Tour de France. Like someone gets like the worst knee gash they've ever had, and like, well, only 9,000 more miles to go, and they absolutely love it.
They are required to listen to Kraftwerk's album Tour de France.
Exactly.
Pat, if you really want to see depths of despair, you should read my Panthers article.
I know. Yeah, I read it.
Also, literally, I forgot you didn't read it.
Yeah,
I was just doing that transition bit because it sounds like a good transition you would come up with.
I read it. Let's see here. Bryce Young on the team. Yeah, Kyle, I genuinely wanted to read. What was something writing the Panthers article? Was there something that stood out as a reason for hope for the 2024 Carolina Panthers? I didn't read it. I'm not going to read about the Panthers. Like, come on, I got 4 kids. I can't read about the Panthers.
in our show sheet, it says Pat comes up with something about Kyle's article. The thing you came up with, ask Kyle about his article, which I did not prepare for.
I ran out of time. You did at least write the article, so I'm assuming you've read it.
In a way, yeah. I guess
what's
also
something from it?
Yeah.
What's something from it?
I mean, the offense was designed really poorly. That's not to say Bryce Young did much within the poor confines of the offense.
Good players, it doesn't really matter. Like PFF Bobby designed a horrible offense last year. I'm just being totally frank, and it didn't matter because CJ Stroud was every other week. PFF Bobby like, Dameon Pierce, we are going to establish it. Devin Singletary is going to be the foundation of this offense. CJ Stroud's not ready. Even though he's looked so ready every single week, we're going to go run heavy this week, including the most important game of the year in week 17, and almost lose for no reason.
I would call that more like decision making, where like the design of this is one of my favorite teams ever. Like the 2019 Ryan Tannehill Titans was extremely well designed. Should any team optimally run on 70% of their early downs? Don't care what your play action rate is. Don't care what your design is. You probably shouldn't. But was the play design throughout the entire game really good? Yeah, it was really good. They made Ryan Tannehill look like a freaking MVP, and that guy was not. And I kind of get that vibe from the Texans last year, especially early in the season. Passing plays were designed really well. He was getting guys wide open and nailing them. Should you have tried to make Dameon Pierce a thing on first down, every first down? No, you probably shouldn't have. So decision-making, I'd say, was not great. Play design, especially on the passing plays, very good. Neither of the Bryce Young didn't have either of those things going for him. He played poorly too. I'm not trying to defend his level of play, but I mean, he wasn't getting to throw to his first read. His guys weren't open. I think Adam Thielen, now I have to try to remember these all off the top of my head. Adam Thielen was like 37th in open score. That's fine. You would think if it was evenly distributed, there would be one player from each team in the top 32. He didn't quite crack that, but he was solid. After that, their next guy in open score was outside the top 100. They did not have guys who could gain separation in any meaningful way, and their best guy at it faded down the stretch and ultimately in the course of the season looked solid but not special. Adding Deontay, whose whole thing is he gets open. He's had like 4 or 5 years in the top 5 or 10 of open score. Last year, I believe he was like 11, and it was his worst season. Like, he gets open, and he cleaned up the drops last year too, which I'm sure like if you're getting open and then dropping them, a young quarterback is going to be extremely flustered by that. He actually cleaned up that issue last year. So I'm going to give the Panthers a lot of credit for doing everything they can to make this situation better, to rectify what was ultimately a poorly talent-driven team and a poorly coached team last year. I do think Bryce Young has every chance to succeed. I'll say he really didn't play like a player who would succeed last year, even when he was throwing to his first read, even when he did have receivers open, he was inaccurate, he was a poor decision maker, but they've given him a chance. And I think if you sort of treat it like the Trevor Lawrence rookie year, I don't think it was that. Like, I don't think the situation was that bad. I think Urban Meyer was a worse coach than Frank Reich. That should not be controversial, frankly. But if you give him in that vein of it was that poor of a team, we've seen Trevor Lawrence come back to be what, like, we both agreed. Like, I don't know, he's the 13th, the 16th, call him whatever you want. If you get that out of Bryce Young, if you get the 14th best quarterback at his ADP,
not happening. I mean, we know that's not happening.
I mean, what do you need to get from him to make him a win at ADP? The 20th best quarterback, the 21st, the 20th, like.
It's a classic. What do you to steal what you said earlier? What do you win when you win? Like,
he goes so late that I think you don't need a big win. Like, you get a quarterback who throws for 25 touchdowns, 3,800 yards. Like,
that's not happening.
25 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's a straight up not. Man, his career maybe.
I mean, it makes me nervous. No. I mean, I hear Crane talking positively about Bryce Young. Now Kyle's talking like Bryce Young.
Well, to be clear, I don't think I said a single positive thing about Bryce Young.
Well,
I don't think I did.
It's more positive than my assessment, and it makes me nervous. Like, what am I missing here? I'm so down on him, as the audience knows, that I dismissed Deontay Johnson completely as a fantasy option. But then I read your piece and I said, "Oh man, I have to be in. I have to."
Maybe on Deontay, because Deontay is the true easy mode. Bryce Young, the thing that just troubled me the most, not trying to make this a bit, but he really is. I've never seen a quarterback look that small. I'm not even trying to be funny or like no. He's legitimately. It's not going to happen. He's not big enough.
I mean, there's a reason why all the pre-draft discourse was about his size. It wasn't because we needed something to talk about. There was plenty to talk about. but we were wondering, can a guy this small go number 1 overall, or even in the top two or three, whatever? And the answer, I think, should have been no. And it wasn't.
I foolishly was okay with it because he was such a playmaker at Alabama. Like, this guy just can
I think
figure it
was
out
fine.
in the flow.
I think
of
he
the
should have
game.
gone second. I like Stroud more, and that's like, results oriented. I did before the draft think he was a better prospect, but like Bryce was a really, if you just look at the numbers,
State guy, it's fine. But yeah.
Look, I mean, it's crazy that I turned out to be extremely right just betting on Ohio State, but what's going on there?
It's true. That's a good.
Where are my national titles?
So it's like nothing even mattered. Like with the Dave Canales stuff, like it's like, who even cares? Like, this is like not going to happen. Like, he's just not. He's not an NFL player. Like, we should have seen it coming. I didn't. I'm not going to pretend like I saw it coming.
No. But
now it's like the classic. I don't know how I didn't see this coming.
You can't unsee what happened last year. You can't pretend that didn't happen. And honestly, on the Deontay Johnson front, I want to be in. Maybe I can get there. The establishment, the run establishment talk makes me a little nervous with Carolina. But I would feel like, honestly, and maybe this is not a hot take. Maybe you guys would be like, yeah, of course. But I would feel much better about Deontay Johnson in fantasy if Andy Dalton were starting for the Panthers.
He really liked to save that one for shock value.
It's not a shock. It's not. No, I mean, is that a bad take? I mean, Andy Dalton is an NFL quarterback.
Sort of.
He's. Now I'm coming back to be the Bryce doubter. Like, the median outcome might be better for Andy Dalton.
Yeah, it probably is, but whatever.
Andy Dalton should be starting in the NFL.
Who do you? No.
Okay, yeah, let's not get carried away. All right, I'm back.
Let's not get carried away. I saw the 2022.
No, he should be starting. He should be starting for the Giants easily.
Maybe
he could be a great backup for the Jets if they lose.
That's something you said.
I was gonna say he needed to be the Jets backup. But Aaron Rodgers would have hated this guy. Like, there's no way Aaron Rodgers.
No, you have to make sure that the backup is bad so that Rodgers doesn't get mad.
Or super injury prone. Tyrod Taylor hurt after 2 seconds.
Right. So he won't have any issue with Tyrod. I don't know. I think Dalton kind of gave up on the starting gig a little too quickly.
I don't know. Like, what is his say in the situation? Like, he's
you guys look like you're
okay. Well, I want to play the game real quick. Who scores more fantasy points this year, Bryce Young or Daniel Jones?
Daniel Jones.
Yeah, the sullen, downtrodden looks on this show.
DJ's Malik Neighbors and Brian Dable. I mean, Dable maybe was exposed as a fake sharp last year.
And the running.
Dave Canales, man. We'll see about Dave Canales. I have some opinions about Dave Canales, but we won't talk about them on the air.
I think I'd take Bryce because I think as bad as Bryce was, like, they can't bench him. Like, you're tied to this guy for at least the end of this year, and they're probably going to try and start him next year. Like, what can you possibly do? Daniel Jones ain't tied to this franchise for the next year. He actually has injury guarantees that kick in. So if he gets hurt, like, they're incentivized to not let him finish the season if they don't think he will be there next year.
Why?
So I think
the Giants. I'm sorry, Kyle. Go ahead.
Go for it. I was about done. Go for it.
Why do the Giants not make more of an effort to get somebody behind Jones? They got Drew Lock.
They want the number 1 pick. They really do.
Okay, so this is a tanking situation because I can't.
I think they're going to try to win, but then when they inevitably don't,
coach
they're not going to
does,
care. Yeah, they're not going to care when they don't win.
I mean, there are so many backups you could trade for. Just throw like a 5th round pick and just get a backup from another team to come on and be your security blanket if Jones completely fails again. And you bring in Drew Lock. Drew Lock, who says he's better than Daniel Jones? He had one good Monday night game last year, and suddenly he's good.
What's more good Monday night game? More good Monday night games than Daniel Jones ever had.
Like Drew Lock is not an NFL starting quarterback. That's very clear.
I'm with Pat. Like you don't want a starter as your backup in this situation either. You are shooting for Shadur Sanders. I was trying to think of a random quarterback next draft. Like,
absolutely triggered about the fact, like, why not get Justin Fields?
You don't want to win. I mean, like, the coaches want to win, and probably the GM wants to win because it's maybe for his job. But I think in terms of like optimal team building, you don't want to go from 3 to 6 wins. It's bad.
I get it. I get that. But also, everybody's fired at the end of this year.
It's probably everybody's fired at the end of the year.
Everybody almost got fired for the Bears, but they finished just well enough, Kyle. what's something you want to ask me about the Bears article I wrote that I'm sure you did read, actually.
I skimmed it. I actually struggle with this one because typically I'd be like, "Why'd you write this, you coward?" I don't agree with that. I was pretty much on board with everything you wrote for the Bears. Like I didn't have like something that interested me because you said things I liked, and not to say that I didn't agree with them. I did, so it wasn't that interesting. But I will say, you seem pretty bullish on Caleb Williams. You talked about, I believe it's 21 rushing touchdowns. You talked about the team going from more or going from way less in terms of the Bears. 3 wide, I believe you had them at 57%.
It was 57.8% last year. Was kind of shocking.
A lot. Yeah, not a lot. And you talked about them very reasonably pushing from that to 70, 75%. I just kind of wanted to parlay that into how much Bears stacks am I allowed to draft? Because I know the history of rookie quarterbacks, we got one smash last year and one terrible one last year. And the history has generally been pretty muddled to disappointing. If we're getting a ton of 3 wide with 3, like one young, like potential superstar level talent and 2 true stars, like QB 12 feels almost a little light for that, doesn't it?
It kind of does. And yeah, the Bears, I just don't even see like the holes really to poking the argument that the Bears are going to just pass so much more than they did last year. I know that's conventional wisdom, but I think it's conventional wisdom because it's just inarguably true where you draft you use the top 10 pick on the receiver. You have 3 super legit receivers. You basically have to use 11 personnel and have 3 receivers out in the field. You make your number 1 running back DeAndre Swift. Where like no one is making a ground and pound offense led by DeAndre Swift. But you only make DeAndre Swift your number 1 running back if you're going to spread it out, maybe go up tempo like this. I just don't see like the trap doors. And yeah, so I agree. It may be QB 12, but yeah, it could be like almost not bearish, but like underselling it a bit with Caleb Williams. Where it's so hard. I mentioned the rushing touchdowns where he did call his own number a lot at the goal line, but he's not. No one's going to call Caleb Williams a dual threat, and it's so hard for a pass first rookie to really break the top 12. I mean, CJ Stroud though kind of showed us the way. I mean, of course, he's a great athlete. And how much does CJ Stroud run last year? I don't even really remember.
None. He didn't run at all. Which, like you said, he's like a legit good athlete. It's just not his style. Whereas Caleb's actually the same thing. He's a really strong athlete, but stylistically, he will run. Whereas
I think he will call his own number, yeah. But he's not a dual threat, though.
No, you wouldn't call him a dual threat in the conventional sense, but in the way that, like, as we see, especially with like Mahomes, when the game actually matters, calls his own number. I think Caleb has that to like a high degree where, yeah, he's not at all a designed run guy, but he has a very natural inclination to move out of the pocket, still throw on the run, but also scramble sometimes.
So yeah, Caleb, so he's still pass first, but maybe there's enough running too. Yeah, where QB 12 is like really, really not optimistic enough. What is CJ Stroud doing? He only had 167 rushing yards last year.
I know.
He should be a 400 rushing yard guy. Which not like he doesn't need to be like a dual threat. He needs to be rushing for 400 yards. What's the last one we got here? Denny from Kyle's Bengals piece, which is going on the website today. What caught your eye?
I think the backfield situation in Cincinnati is so. I mean, it's like mouth-watering for zero RB bros because you want to be able to land whoever gets that lead back role, whether it's Zack Moss, whether it's Chase Brown. I'm not super comfortable with Zack Moss's ADP, which means that if I'm going to grab one of these guys, it's going to be Chase Brown a little later. Are you on board? I couldn't quite tell if you were on board with that, or are you okay with grabbing Moss where he's going?
RB 26 for Moss, RB 37 for Chase Brown.
Yeah, Moss is fine. I think as I was writing, and I was like, there's a lot to like about Zack Moss, and I haven't drafted him a lot. I was kind of with you. I'm like, Chase Brown was efficient on 9 touches last year. Let's just fire that guy up. Like, let's just go for it. Have some fun. But like, as in this draft environment where receivers are going so early and he's the 26th running back off the board, you're not telling me he couldn't be like the Jamal Williams Lions type of player where, yeah, he's not getting much work on passing downs, but he's the primary 2-down guy on a team that should score a lot of points and he walks his way into a lot of touchdowns. Yeah. So not having a lot of him relatively cheap felt like a pretty big leak. So I haven't drafted him a ton now, and this was kind of my sort of reckoning with myself on I do love drafting Chase Brown. It's quite fun. It's exhilarating to click the button on Chase Brown.
It is.
But I think it would be impractical to think that Moss doesn't have a very strong chance relative to players in his range of scoring 12 touchdowns and rushing for like 1,200 yards.
I don't know. He faded pretty bad last year, I'll say, Zack Moss.
Well, I mean, Taylor came back. So.
He did, but then even when he went out again, and early season Zack Moss did not return at all.
Yeah, I want to know. Like, I desperately want to know who the guy is going to be. Maybe there won't be a guy. You know, maybe it'll be just a frustrating committee. I think that's probably. I guess that's likely more than unlikely.
I think at these costs, though, like a frustrating committee is still fine. Like, I don't want to spend like at RB26, you're not getting workhorse backs. Like, of course, one will emerge from here, but
this team should have a lot of positive game scripts.
Yeah,
you know, like lots of red zone opportunities. Like, you want that. Like, that just screams running back value. And so I guess just take your shots with those Bengals running backs if you didn't invest heavily at running back early in the draft.
I do want Chase Brown. I wish Chase Brown was outside the top 40, though. RB 37, you're kind of getting in. Like, I'm going to flex this guy every week.
I think he's going late. Like in DraftKings best ball, he's going later than that.
No, a normie drafts don't mean. Your guy won't even have an ADP. I mean, it's fine. You can take.
Yeah, that is true. Yes, and you got to remember for listeners, you know, in your family drafts, whatever. Chase Brown he's not going anywhere. Like, you just take him near the end, third to last pick, second to last pick, whatever.
Really good stuff on the Bengals from Kyle and the Panthers and Kyle, which I'm going to read the article. I got the Bears up there yesterday. The team preview series is going to keep going. We're going in alphabetical order. Who we got next here? We got Kyle yet again tomorrow with the Cleveland Browns. Zach Kruger on the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday. Aditya Foldiori on the Denver Broncos on Friday. Going to be going all next week, even through the holidays. So check it out. Check out Denny and I on Thursday, where we're going to have some special guests, including, as Kyle mentioned, Mr. Hayden Winks. We were going to have Kyle on. He's been kicked off the show because there's too many people.
Sorry.
We're sorry the preview show is not today. It will be Thursday. So for Kyle Dvorchak, for Denny Carter, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in 2 days.